everybody. Welcome back. We're going to be talking about the Bhagavad Gita, and before I do that, I'm just going to play a song that is, it comes from the Bhagavad Gita. It's the time, so there's a point in the story, in the text, where Krishna reveals himself to Arjuna. He shows Arjuna the fullness of his being. And these are the first words that Arjuna says at that moment. And I'm sharing it because the word Gita means song. So this is not just a story, it's not just a poem, it actually is a song. And I wanted to just give you a sense, a little bit of the flavor of the lyricality of it. Every translation of every text, but I think there's some like 500 English translations of the Bhagavad Gita or more. Every translation of every text involves tons of different decisions about, is it going to rhyme, or the actual original text in Sanskrit rhymes. So, and there's a meter to it. And, it doesn't have a specific rhyme scheme, but the word flow is unique. The sounds of it are unique. So it's not just the beauty of the teaching itself, it's the flow of the sound. Anyway, so I just I'm going to play a little bit to give you a feeling of how that can sound. And you can just remember that this is Arjuna, who his whole life has known this person named Krishna. And there's a battle that's about to happen. It's a giant battle. And a few days before, Arjuna and his foe, his opponent, who happens to be his cousin, both meet with Krishna. And they both go to him asking Krishna for help. And Krishna says to both of them, Duryodhana comes into Krishna's room while he's sleeping, and he's sitting there waiting for Krishna to wake up. And Arjuna comes to the door, and Krishna opens his eyes just as Arjuna comes in, and he sees Arjuna first. And so he says, you both want me on your side. And Krishna is the king of a whole area, so he has troops and an army and everything. And he says, you both want me on your side, but I'm going to let you choose. You can either have me, or you can have my whole army. I'm not going with my army. So you either get all my army, all my troops, all my weapons, everything, or you get me. And he said, Arjuna, you choose first. And Arjuna chooses him, just Krishna. And Duryodhana, the cousin with whom Arjuna is going to go to battle, is happy. He's like, great, I get the army. He just gets the one guy. And Arjuna doesn't really understand in an intellectual way who Krishna is at this point. He's his friend, he's his mentor. And this, the battle is about to happen. The forces are massed on either side, and Krishna is Arjuna's charioteer, so he's the one driving the chariot, and Arjuna is in the back of the chariot. And he asks Krishna to drive him down so he can see the other side, because we can see the enemy lines. And Krishna says, okay, I'll take you down there, and he takes him down, and Arjuna has this experience of absolute despair. These are my friends, these are my cousins, these are my uncles, this is my family, these are my teachers, these are my mentors. This is terrible. I can't do this. I give up. It's better that I should just give up and not fight than that we should do this terrible thing. And so this is the moment of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the kind of context of it. And throughout the text, Krishna gradually alludes to the fact that he is more than just an ordinary human person. And in the 11th chapter, he shows the fullness of himself to Arjuna. He says, I've told you who I am. Now you're going to see who I am. And these are the words that Arjuna says at that moment when Krishna shows him his true form. Pashyami devans tava deva dehi sarvans tata bhuta vishesha sanghan brahmanamisham kamalasanastam rishins cha sarvan udagans cha divyan aneka bahudara vatra netram pashyami tam sarvato nandarupam na antam na madhyam na punastu adi pashyami vishveshvara vishvarupa kiritinam garinam chakrinam cha tejurashim sarvato diptimantam pashyami tvam duniriksham samanta diptanalarkatyutima prameyam tvam aksharam paramam veditavyam tvam asya vishvasya param nidhanam tvam avyaya shashvata dharma gupta sanatanastvam purusho matome sanatanastvam purusho matome. The word pashyami means I see. Pashyami devans tava deva dehe. I see all the gods, all the devas, all the radiant ones in their radiant bodies. I see the whole community of celestial beings. I see Brahma seated in a lotus. The Lord Brahma, Brahmanamisham, the Lord Brahma seated in a lotus. I see all the rishis, and I see all the sacred serpents. I see 1,000,000 arms and legs. Well, it's aneka, so like not none. Endless arms, legs, mouths, bellies. I see your endless eternal form. You have no beginning, you have no middle, and you have no end. Your form is everything. With a crown, with a mace, with a chakra. Your radiance shining like fire, like the brilliance of the sun. And Aksharam Paramam, the one who is beyond even eternity. Akshara is like that which is without form, that which is formless, beyond form, the formlessness out of which all form comes. So he's saying, Tvam Aksharam, you are the formless out of which all form comes. Paramam, you're even more than that. You contain the formlessness out of which all form comes. And the last line, Sanatanastvam Purusho Matome, Sanatana is like you're eternal. You are eternal. Purusho matome, it's like, Purusha, the spirit, the eternal, never-ending spirit that is so close to me. And this is like, the Bhagavad Gita has so many layers to it, so many different teachings, but this central aspect of Krishna revealing himself as the Purushottama, the ultimate Purusha, the ultimate soul, that is inside of everything, inside the cosmos, inside creation, inside you. He says, I'm the digestive fire inside of every person. So inside of everything. And also, Krishna is everything, is the cosmos, is the whole earth and the intelligence of the cosmos. So inside the cosmos and the cosmos itself and outside of the cosmos, the being, the oneness, the eternal formlessness that contains the cosmos, and the Purushottama that contains all of that. And here he is in a human form. This is it's a new, this sense of the avatar, that the eternal, formless, absolute can embody inside of a human form. A good deal of the Gita is taken up by exploring this reality. Krishna talking about it, describing it. He says at some point, this yoga that I'm teaching you, I taught to the sun. And the sun taught it to the first human. And Arjuna's like, wait, what? How's that possible? You're here right now. You couldn't have taught it to the sun. And Krishna says, I know all of my lives, and you don't know, you can't see your lives. You and I have lived many lives before. I can see them and you can't. That's the difference. So this is the frame of the teaching. The frame is an encounter with the divine. And it's happening on a battlefield. And much is made of this kind of battlefield reality, that this teaching is happening on a battlefield, and that Krishna is saying to Arjuna, fight. Arjuna is saying, no, I can't do it. I quit. It's terrible. It's going to just be horrible and bloody, and I'm going to lose everything that I care about. Even if I win, I'm not going to be happy because all these people that I love are going to be dead, so I'm not going to do it. And instead of saying, yes, ahimsa, yes, don't do it, Krishna says, no, this is your dharma. And if you don't do it, a lot worse things are going to happen. And, there's lots of people use this kind of battlefield teaching as a justification for violence. The Hindu nationalist in India, for example, will talk about the Bhagavad Gita as justifying war and violence. And I take it a little bit more as Krishna, or the teaching, the whole context of this thing is basically like, this teaching that Krishna imparts is so profound, so nuanced, so specific, and I'll get into the kind of a little bit of that in a minute, but it's happening, it's like even here, this battlefield, this moment of absolute crisis where the entire world looks like it's about to explode into violence, this place where Arjuna is the agent of, his role in this is to fight in this war. Even then, these rules apply. It's like, can you think of a time, because, we can take spiritual teachings and be like, oh, that's really nice. Now I'm going to go live my life. Because the spiritual teachings go over there and my life is over here, and there's not really and Krishna's like, no. Everywhere. Even here. Even in the most dire, terrible situation that you could possibly imagine. Even now, and it's so important that I'm going to, use this as the space to deliver these teachings. So there's no place, there's no circumstance, there's no excuse, there's no compartment, there's no line between these teachings and life, and any part of life, any place of life, any outward circumstances that we might find ourselves in. There's nothing. They apply all the time. It's like a teaching, it's like the tip of the spear. This teaching it's so poignant. It's cast in this profoundly poignant moment. And Krishna's first teaching to Arjuna, so he doesn't just jump right into like, I am the divine one that holds all the universe inside of me, and I love you, and the path is love. He doesn't just jump right to that. He's like, okay, hold on. Let's just stabilize here. First of all, like, just so you know, your soul is not the same thing as your body. When your body, all the people that are in this war, everybody, you come into life, you leave life. So anybody who dies, their body dies, but the soul does not die. And part of the problem here, Arjuna, as Krishna is saying, is you think of yourself as the one who's doing things. You think of yourself as a free agent, but actually that's not really how it works. So he kind of goes right into these two things, right? Like there's an eternal soul that wears the body like clothes and takes the body off like clothes. And like you're not really the doer. And he leans into what he calls Sankhya, right? So we've spent some time learning about Sankhya. The Sankhya that he talks about is, it has a little bit of a different shape to it than exactly the Sankhya Karika, but it's the basic principles. He talks a lot about the gunas, he talks about prakriti, he talks about evolution, the things evolving out of each other, manas and ahankar and buddhi, the internal principles of the wisdom and the ego sense, the I-ness. So he does kind of use all of the terms of Sankhya, the tattvas, the elements of creation. He uses that framework. But he's basically saying at this point, early on, he's saying, according to Sankhya, understand that it's the gunas that are working. Like you're being pulled by rajas, by rage, by anger. You're being pulled by sattva, by light, by joy, by happiness. You're being pulled by tamas, by lethargy and heaviness and density. The three gunas are just churning. The prakriti is just working itself out. Nature is just working itself out. So most of the time, when you think you're free, when you think you're making a decision, when you think I'm the doer, it's actually not you. These are past tendencies just kind of passing through you. They're habits. We could call them, karma, samskara, or just like habits of being, habits of thinking. That's what's acting. You're basically just in autopilot. And even when you think you're making a decision, you are so caught up in desire and what you want and what you don't want, what's good for you, what's not good for you. Your mind is so immersed in that you actually can't see your way out of it. You can't make a clear decision. You can't make a decision from free will. And the only alternative, the only way that you can decide freely is to align with the deeper being, is to align with your soul, and to act in a way in which you're not chasing the fruits of your action. So you think about, that should make the audio a little better. If you think about in your own life, how often are you acting because you want the outcome, because you're attached to an outcome? because you're thinking about, okay, if I do this, then I'm going to get that. If I do this favor for this person, then, maybe they'll think more highly of me later. It can be very direct, or it could be pretty subtle. If I take this job, then I'm going to get this money. If I, make this decision to go to this place at this time, then I'm going to get this out of it. The fruits, Krishna is basically saying, you're entitled to your action, but you're not entitled to the fruit of the action. You're entitled to act. You can act. And he kind of says, the whole idea of Sankhya is the only way to be liberated is to withdraw from the whole thing. Because it's all a mess. Prakriti is just an illusion. You're confused. It's just churning itself out. You're not free. You're deluded. So the only way is to be completely still and withdraw yourself from the whole illusion. That's the basic message of Sankhya. And Krishna says, okay. So all that stuff about Sankhya is true, but that part, I'm going to stop there, because you can't not act. You sit still and your heart's still beating. Your mind's still thinking. You can't really withdraw all the way, or else, you could die, but that's not, what are you doing here? If you're just, for the whole purpose of life is to die, then why are you even alive? So he's like, you can act. You should act, but don't be attached to the fruits of your actions. And he goes back to something that I mentioned during the session on the Vedas, and probably since then, maybe a few times, about sacrifice. He specifically says that the sacrifice, the yajna that is taught about in Indian spirituality is not about chanting mantras and putting things into the fire. It's about sacrificing your actions, making your actions sacred, offering your actions into the fire of the divine, on the altar of the divine. So do everything. And Krishna, when he speaks, he says, everything that you do, offer it to me. Make it a sacrifice to me. So this is it can seem kind of abstract, but this is very practical. In a life, in a day, in a situation, we can ask ourselves at any time, am I doing this because I am attached to something, I want to get something out of it, or am I doing it because I'm offering this to the divine? And am I doing it because I'm moved from within, or am I doing it because I'm scanning the outside world and trying to make the best decision based on what the outcome might be? Am I worried about what people are going to think about me? Am I worried about how people are going to respond to my actions? Or am I just offering my actions completely with clarity? And obviously, we are hugely habituated towards the former, towards doing everything and kind of scanning the outside world to make sure everything's going to be okay, and then trying to fit in an appropriate way. And so, we're not just going to jump from one to the other, but it's kind of it's a potential to aspire to. Krishna points us in a direction, like, here, this is a way. This is a spiritual practice that's not like, you go on into a cave and you do pranayama for a long time and meditate and, do particular meditations or particular mantras, or it's like, no, this is a yoga of life. This is a yoga that you practice with every breath, with every interaction, with every situation that you're in. I think, it's hard to kind of convey, but I think Corinne and I have talked to you about our being brought into this whole situation as owners of a yoga studio. I mean, to be totally honest with you, we really didn't, especially at the moment that it was all coming together. It wasn't like we want to be yoga studio owners. We want to do this. It was like, this is financially a bad decision. We're going to be tied to a piece of real estate in Amherst, Massachusetts. At that time, there was no online anything. and we're going to own a small business and be responsible for it and have all the risks and responsibilities associated with that, and not the kind of support of a paycheck and all that. It was not at all like this is a good thing. We were really like, this doesn't seem like it's going to work, but there was something behind. There was something inside of us that was calling, that was very non-linear, that was just like, this is what you have to do now. And we had to navigate that space, and we had to go into it with, and every step along the way is a journey of like, this isn't for us. This isn't for us. This isn't for our security. This isn't for our, benefit. This isn't for our retirement plan. This, we are offering as much as we can. And there's a kind of, dynamic here. We're not perfected beings who are doing everything perfectly. So we're kind of muddling through it and doing the best we can. But that's the aspiration, is we offer this. And how do we offer it? How do we create something that's just an offering without being attached to the outcome? And this is the essence of the teaching of the Gita. Offer everything. Offer all of your actions from the depth inside you. And inside you, and Krishna is saying basically, inside you is me. He starts out by unifying. What he says is he's creating unification between Sankhya and Yoga. Sankhya is this kind of up and out philosophy, we could say, or, that the only way to be liberated is to be completely still and silent and withdraw. And yoga, he's not talking about the Yoga Sutras really. He's talking about yoga as an active practice, and something that there's action, what we're doing. So it's not kind of just focusing on samadhi as the end goal. So he's saying, he's reconciling these two and saying, let's put these together. Sankhya is real and true. You aren't just this body-mind system. There is a deeper reality. You aren't just this prakriti that's working itself out in kind of this diluted state. You have the wisdom of the divine within you, and it's in you, and you can act from it. And you can offer all of your actions to the fire of that divine being inside of you, and to the fire of the divine being in the collective around you, and the earth and the cosmos. You can offer everything to that. And that is, the way to yoga. The way to what he would call the yoga of self-purification. Or what he does call the yoga of self-purification. So he reconciles Sankhya and yoga. He's reconciling karma, action, karma yoga, what we hear of as karma yoga, and jnana yoga. Jnana yoga is the yoga of wisdom. So he's reconciling, saying you should know who you are, and you should act like who you are. And then he brings in a third element, the yoga of love, bhakti. And he weaves these three elements together, karma, jnana, and bhakti. And he says, the one who, some people love me because they're in distress. And some people love me because they're trying to, find their way. And some people love me because they know me. And that's the highest form of love. The highest form of love for the divine is the one who knows the divine. When you know the divine, you can't help but love the divine. And when you love the divine, you come into knowing, you come to know the divine through that love, because the divine is love. So he's weaving these strands together, karma and jnana and bhakti, into this teaching of selflessness. Krishna talks a lot about releasing desire and attachment. He talks about desire as kind of the thing that leads to attachment. And he's very specific. He's not talking about the longing that gives birth to creation, the longing, the aspiration that pulls evolution forward, that pulls the human out of the monkey, that pulls the frog out of the fish. He's not talking about the longing for the divine that elevates humanity. He's talking about desire on the lower level, desire that's selfish, desire that cuts oneself off from the cosmos. So when I desire something for me, I'm acting as if I am separate. If I desire something for my family, I'm acting as if my family is separate. For me at the expense of others. For my family at the expense of others. For my country at the expense of other countries. So when we have this my sense and desire is connected and rooted in that my sense, it creates only suffering for ourselves and for others. The root of suffering is this desire, and we have to, just like in the Yoga Sutras, I pointed out that the word yama, niyama, pranayama, samyama, right? The word yama, restraint. There is a sense in this yoga that we have to contain something. It's not just like, free love and do whatever you want. He's saying there are selfish desires that you contain as a result of being born into this situation, into this milieu. And you do have to work at containing these desires. You do have to work at restraining and overcoming the impulsive craving and selfish desire that is inside your human being. And attachment, and the way to overcoming desire is through equanimity, equality. So by not preferring. And this is also very directly related to not being attached to the fruits of your actions, because being attached to the fruits of the actions comes from a preference, comes from, I prefer this or that. He's basically like, you have to kind of get over that and discover inside yourself, find the place of equanimity where you're not chasing after this or that and you're stable in any situation. Conquest of the senses and the stilling of the mind. This is both Sankhya and the Yoga Sutras, pratyahara, withdrawing the senses, stilling of the mind in samadhi. These are things that Krishna says are good, are important, but he doesn't say go and do it forever. He says this is kind of the basis. This is what forms the foundation for you to become a divine actor in the world. So it's not about finding your way to get enlightened and get out of this mess. It's finding the way to have a foundation from which you can act as a divine channel in the world and offer all of your actions to the divine, which knows the good of all, right? The divine knows in a way that the mind can't what is good for all, what is good, what will uplift everyone, even if it doesn't seem like, sometimes the answer isn't clear about what to do. And Krishna basically says there's a divine sense that each of us has that taps into the collective and knows what's good for all. So through passionless and impersonal action and the sacrifice of works, the sacrifice of the works to the divine within, to the divine without, to the divine being that is everything, and inner renunciation as opposed to outer renunciation. Like this was a point of tension at that time. It's not so much a point of tension in our modern society, but there, in India, even now, you can go and see people dressed in the orange robes on the streets, begging, meditating in caves. This sannyas, this renunciation. Krishna makes a distinction between that renunciation, withdrawing from the world, withdrawing from worldly activities, cloistering oneself, and inner renunciation, which he says can be done anywhere. He's basically like, it's not like whatever you see, whatever the show is, that's not what this is about. This is about your inner being, your inner state. So if you are an inner renunciate, you can be anywhere and do anything. And you can be, it's living in a cave and sitting there and thinking about desires all day. And, so it's not really the same thing. And at the time that Krishna is speaking, these are kind of arguments that are happening within spiritual communities. And he's really reconciling and synthesizing all of these different ideas. And he also uses the Sankhya framework of the gunas to say that the way to self-realization is by embodying sattva guna. Remember, sattva guna is light, it's radiant, it's clear, it's balanced. Rajas is action, fire, anger, desire, craving. Tamas is lethargy, heaviness, stillness. It's kind of the breaks, you know. He says that as much as we can move to a state where we're embodying sattva more and more in our life, it's from that space, and this is also consistent with the Yoga Sutras. The Yoga Sutra says that liberation comes from the discernment between sattva guna and the purusha, the spirit, the soul, the kind of spiritual being. So Krishna is saying the same thing. When we embody sattva guna, from that place, then we can find, we like kind of stand up and look up and open our eyes, and we can experience that which is beyond the gunas themselves. And, you know, that which is beyond the gunas, it's not to say there's a line between this creation and that God out there, you know, some divine in some other dimension. It's all here, but there's a liberation from the control of the gunas, from the spin and churn of the gunas, by one who has realized themselves as the spirit that contains the gunas, that is the gunas, that's in the gunas, but is not beholden to them. Krishna says, the gunas are in me, but I am not in the gunas. And by that he means the gunas, the all of creation exists within Krishna, but Krishna is not imprisoned by the laws and the kind of delusion of creation. He's not subject to that. And all of this kind of leads to what Krishna calls the supreme secret, which is that the relationship, the natural relationship between the human and the divine is love. And that those, he's like, you know, I'm walking around here like I am an embodiment of the divine, and most people have no idea. Most people are blind to the reality of who I am. But the ones who can see me, there's a profound bond of love. I love them deeply and they love me deeply. They come to me. When they die, they come to me. And in times of distress, I am with them. And so, you know, his final message at the end, when he's speaking to Arjuna and kind of summarizing everything and going through each of these things, you know, so like, you know, be desireless and contain your senses and still your mind and offer your works to me and all these things. And he kind of culminates with, you know, anything, if you offer your love to me, and this is Krishna speaking as the divine, I will always be with you. I will never leave you. Like as much as you aspire and reach up, I am also reaching down simultaneously. And I think this is the one thing that differentiates this teaching, is this is the divine saying, I'm here with you. You're not alone. You're not just in this kind of isolated life, trying to figure things out, stumbling, falling down, you know, I who am greater than the cosmos, who am greater than the formlessness, I who pervade everything and exceed everything, I am here with you all the time. No matter what you're going through, no matter how alone you feel, I am here. And just reach out to me, just call out to me, and I will be with you and I will support you. And this bond of love and this kind of intimate conversation with the divine embodied in a person is, I think, the most poignant aspect of the Bhagavad Gita. The relationship between the soul in nature, the human soul that's kind of embedded in nature, and the soul that exceeds nature, the mutable self, the self that's unchanging, and the divine being, the Purushottama. You know, all these dimensions of self he's kind of describing the natural relationship between them all. When you offer to me and when you know me, you are dear to me, he says. Take refuge in me alone. So no matter what happens in your life, no matter what difficulties you face, always come to me, take refuge in me alone. And we're, right now living in a very difficult moment. I mean, it's not as difficult here as it is in Ukraine or in Bangladesh or in parts of Somalia or in Yemen. It's not, our lives are comfortable compared to that. But we live in the shadow, as much as we'd like to deny it, of apocalypse all the time. I think my children are probably the first generation to generally grow up knowing that humans could go extinct very soon. That's just, in the common space, that's an understanding that we all share. And we're living in this shadow of apocalypse with this real sense of being cut off from, there's a polarization on a large scale in this country between political beliefs and all kinds of things. But then there's kind of on an individual level, it feels often like it's just me here. And then there's all these other people that are other people. They're outside. They don't have the same needs. My needs are not their needs. Who's going to look out for me? Who's going to make sure that I'm okay? Right? Who's going to take care of what I need? Who's going to make the decisions that need to be made and make the sacrifices? And Krishna's saying, take refuge in me. I am here to do this with you. You don't ever have to feel like you're alone. You don't ever have to feel like it's just you. Because I'm always here with you to help you make these decisions, to help you navigate this difficult time. And again, this is the point of a knife. Arjuna is facing his own imminent death and the possibility, the very real likelihood of killing people that he loves. It's one or the other. And Krishna is basically like, listen, if you just walk away from this battle and you just let Duryodhana win, the badness that will come from that, the evil that will overtake the entire earth is unfathomable. You have to stand here. You have to stand in the face of this great evil and offer your heart. And he's not saying steel yourself. It's become battle hardened, release compassion, go out and create destruction. There's none of that. He's actually bringing Arjuna closer and closer into his heart, into that unarmored place. At a certain point when Krishna shows his whole self to Arjuna, and Arjuna is like, stop. It's too much. I can't bear it. It's too terrible. It's too, like, the whole cosmic being is overwhelming to me. Can you stop? So that's a vulnerable place, to be overwhelmed by a vision of the divine. That's where Krishna brings him. He's not bringing him into like, okay, let's put on the body armor and let's steel ourselves against reality. He's saying, let's touch into the very delicate nuances of your own spiritual heart. And then, yes, you do still have to go and live your life. You still do have to go fulfill your dharma. And the thing that's important to remember here is Arjuna is a kshatriya. His unique, personal, individual dharma is to go and fight in this war. That is not everyone's individual, unique dharma, is to go and fight in a war. And it was his unique, personal dharma at that moment, at that time. So there's the broader historical context, there's a communal context, there's his own personal dharma. And each of us has our own situation. This is a different time. This is a different communal context. I have my own individual dharma here, but it's like all the rules apply. It's not the same outcome. I don't need to go concoct a war. I don't need to go fight in a war. I need to discern what is the divine asking of me to do right now that I'm too afraid to do? What is the divine saying, okay, here it is. Here's this, and it might be a big thing and it might be a small thing today. Here it is. And can I do it? Does it seem absurd? Does it seem crazy? Does it seem terrifying to stand up and be myself, to offer myself? To be honest, I'm leaving for India on Tuesday. And on an intellectual level, it does not at all feel like a good time to be traveling across the world. Between the COVID situation and what's happening globally and where things look like they might be headed. But there's a call, and the only reason that I'm going to India is because I was called, and I have spent many hours in meditation trying to discern the sincerity, the realness of that call, and it's consistent. And so even though I'm actually, to be honest, afraid and dealing with a lot of anxiety, you could say. I mean, I don't know if that's the best word. Physiological fear. I'm going because the call is there, even though it's not, so there's that experience of like, I don't want to do this. Can't I just get out of this? Can't I just stay home? I've been home for 2 years. It's kind of nice here. It's kind of safe. I really gonna miss my family. I don't know even really, I know I am going in an outer way for my work, but like, I don't have an answer to the question of why am I going other than I feel called. And so that, I don't know, what that means to you, or how to kind of convey the nuance of that. But it's a still, silent draw. It's something that if I can find a space of quiet inside myself, and I ask the question, do I need to go? The feeling is yes, the feeling is openness, expansiveness. And so, making that, standing in the middle of that and making the decision to step forward in the midst of the fear, that's the teaching of the Gita, as far as I understand it. And knowing that I am, with the divine is with me, and I'm never alone. And that, I'm being guided all the time. And I have all the resources that I need along the way. Take refuge in me. The most secret knowledge of all, Krishna says, is that you are loved by me. The 18th chapter. After all this Sankhya and yoga and sacrifice and, works and the kind of revelation of who Krishna is, he says the most secret, the most powerful, the most sublime secret of all is that you are loved by me. And standing in that place it opens up a lot of possibility. It opens up a lot of possibility to move through fear, to move through self-protection, self-preservation instinct. You are loved by me. And can you feel that in your own life, what that would be like to know that you are loved by the divine no matter what, by the one that is the whole universe and is bigger than the whole universe, the one that is in everything and is everything. You are loved unconditionally all the time by that. What would it change? What would you do differently? There's no way that if you act in accordance with that love, you can fail. There's no failure. Arjuna even asks at some point, so what if I try? What if I try all this stuff that you're saying and I fail? And Krishna's like, no. It's not how it works. There's no going back. Every step forward is a step forward. It's permanent. Every step towards me is a permanent step towards me. So your outer circumstances might look like things are falling apart, but that's not true. Your inner being is closer to me now than it was before. There's no going back.